Assalamu alaikum. This is your computer science teacher, Sir Fawad Akhtar Ansari, and today I will explain you a version of a function. There are like how can we write the function with a variant program. So I made two versions of the same questions. So I'm going to explain you one by one. First, let's study the question and try to understand it. So the question is, write a program in your chosen high level language to prompt the user to enter two numbers, a starting number and a number to be added. Then it says make a function to add numbers 10 times and then print the result. So the question is pretty much straightforward. We just take two inputs from the user and then we add these numbers together using a function and then we display the result. So this program can be made, as I told you many times, that there are many variants of the program or the variations of the same program. So we can make different types of programs along with the validation checks. So I'm just giving you a concept by explaining you a simple code or a simple program, and you have to modify yourself by adding some validation checks or adding some more logic to make it more effective for the practice basically. So now let's make a code. So keep in mind that we have to take first two user input and then we have to make a function. Okay, so for the function I am leaving some spaces. Okay, so let's make a main program code. So I am typing main program for user understand. So I take two user inputs, num1, data type I am taking integer, you may take float, it's up to you. Then I take input with the prompt, enter a number. Now I copy the same code and I change the variable name and enter, for example, another number. Now I make a function. So I write the keyword def and I must write the name of the function. So add underscore numbers. This is my function name. Now I have to pass the parameter. I take user input 1 and user input 2. So when the program will be executed, so the values that I input in num1 and num2, these values will be passed as an argument into the function as the parameter. Now inside the function, next step is okay. Now so next step is to take a variable. I take a variable result and I store a parameter that I used, user input 1. I am storing user input 1 into the result because, let me apply it the loop, then I will tell you. For now I use underscore in range 10, you may write 10 or 1 comma 11, it's up to you. So I use underscore because what I'm doing right now, I am, let me type and I tell you, I am incrementing in user input 2. So the logic of these three lines, line 2, 3 and 4, the logic is I take a parameter user input 1 and I store in the variable result. Why? So I can do the increment with the user input 2. For example, I explain you here. For example, I input 2. This is my num1, and in num2, for example, I input 1. So what happens, in the result variable I stored user input, which is 2 and then the for loop will start iterating in adding the number instead counting, because we are not counting the numbers, we are not counting the numbers, we are adding the numbers. So that is why inside the loop, I am just writing here, inside loop result variable is incrementing user input 2. It means that each time in the user input 1, each time 1 will be added. So 2 plus 1 becomes 3. Then in the next time 3, in the 3 1 will be added, so it will become 4. Then 4 will be incremented plus 1, so it becomes 5. So this is a logic. This process will iterate 10 times, so that is why I used this logic. I hope it is clear with you. Now it's time to return the values. Return the variable result to the main program. Why I am returning? Because I want to display the result into the main program, so that is why I am returning it back to the main code or the main program. I do not want the result in the inside the function. I want the result, I want the output to be displayed using the main program instead of the function. So that is why I am returning the variable result to our main program. Now in the main program, my variable result returns here, and it returns with the function. Let me add the function name. I forgot to type the column. So when my result returns to the main program, I am storing my function name, and I am taking here my variable's name. The reason of changing parameters to the variable name, so when my program executes main program, so it will pass the variables values into the parameters and then do the functionality like adding the numbers and return the variable result into the main program. When it is returned, so I store entire function. I am storing entire function name into this variable. So I am storing this entire function in the variable. So now it's time to display the result. So result is comma result. Now I am removing extra lines. Now let's test the code whether it is working or not. So okay, it gives me error in the line number 5. Okay, so it gives me error in the line number 5 because I have to type the return inside the loop. Now let's test the code. Okay, enter number. For example, I input 2 and I input 1, so the answer is 12. So each time 1 will be added, as I showed you here, each time 1 will be added. So when it iterates, let's suppose this is the first iteration, this is the second iteration, this is the third iteration. Now if I say that 5 plus 1 becomes 6, so this is the fourth iteration, and now 6 plus 1 becomes 7. So iteration number 1, iteration number 2, iteration number 3, iteration number 4, iteration number 5. Now for the better understanding, I write it here. Let me adjust here, and I write it here iteration number. Okay, so here it will become easy for you to understand that what is the logic of our code. So this is iteration number iteration number, let me write number in the short form, iteration number 1. Okay, now in the iteration number 2, now iteration number 3, now iteration number 4, now iteration number 5. Let me make it in the proper order. Now it will become here easy here. Now 7 is the current number, plus 1 becomes 8. Now iteration number 7, 8 plus 1 becomes 9. Then iteration number 8, 9 plus 1 becomes 10. Iteration number 9, each time I am increasing 1 because I input 1. If I input other number, so other number will be incremented. Now it will become 11 plus 1 becomes 12. So I input first number 2 and the second number I input 1. So in the 10 iterations it will display the number like this. I hope you understand the concept of this function, that how the function is working. Let's recall it or revise it. I took 2 user inputs and then I passed the values in my parameters, and then I stored this parameter into the variable result. The reason is, when we start the iteration, number 2 that we input already and it is passed into the parameter, so each time the parameter which is user input 2, it will be incremented in my first number. Then I am storing it in the variable result, and the result will be sent back to the main program. So in the main program, the result is here, and I am storing entire function name. This is my function name along with my variables. So what happens, that when the result will be called, so it will perform this calculation. When it performs this calculation after calling, then it will display the result. So I hope you got the concept of this program, that I called the function and store it in the variable result to perform this operation, and then we will display the result. Now I told you in the beginning that there is another variant of this code, so I'm going to explain you the variant. So there is no difference in the variant. It totally depends upon person to person, that how do they make the code, what is their logic. So there are many other variations as well. You may add validation checks, you may add more logic. So there are you can make multiple codes of the same logic. So let's make a variant of this code. Now in the variant, what I'm going to do now, in the variant, I do not want to return the result. I do not want to return the result. Instead, I want to display the result inside the function. So I want to display the result inside the function. This is one change in line number 5, and in line number 11, which is the last line, I am removing the variable result from the main program. So I am basically I'm doing, I'm just calling the function into the main program. So when I call the function into the main program, it will display, it will do the calculation and display the result inside the function. But in the previous program, I called the function name and stored in the result variable. In the previous program, if I show you here, so in the previous program, I called the function and stored it in the variable result, so it can do the calculation inside the function. But in this program, I am just calling the function name, but I am not storing in any variable. Now it's time to test the code. I am choosing the same values like in the previous program, 2 and 1. So let's test the code, 2 and 1. The previous output of the code was 12. Now let's see, we get the same output. So now you will ask me that what is the difference between the previous program and this program. So basically, let's go for the textual or the theoretical thing. Like in the previous program, I displayed the result variable in the main program, and in this program I am displaying the result inside the function. So or you may say that displaying the result outside the function and inside the function, it totally depends upon your requirement, that what you want to do. You want to display the result inside the function or outside the function. For example, if I go for the question, so in the question it does not say, look, it does not say display the result outside the function. It just says print the result. It just say print the result. So if any student make this code that prints the result inside the function, and the other student is making the program which print the result outside the function, so it is acceptable, because both logics are correct, both approaches are correct. It depends upon you that how do you think that how you write the code. So it is just upon depending on the requirement. But if it is mentioned in the question, if it is mentioned in the question that print the result inside a function, if this is a question, then you make only this code, not the previous one. But our question was simple, that it said that print the result. So you may print the result inside the function or outside the function, it's totally up to you. So this was just the variant that I said in the beginning that I want to explain you. If you have any queries, you may ask me, and thank you so much attending the class. Take care. Allah Hafiz.